All right, are we live, everybody? Welcome back to the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Starting Park Car here, and well, we're on my cell phone again this week. Still having camera problems with my laptop, and I've been kicked out of the office. Dad had to use his office this week, so not only are we on my cell phone again, we're in my room. This is my room, as you can see, of my giant toy wall, obviously. So we're back here, folks, with the ARC Racing Podcast, Calamity in Daytona. Pretty much the best way I can describe it, so I had to put it in the title. But Calamity in Daytona this past weekend. Yeah, that's probably the nicest way to say the least. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but I wish I was there. I wish I was there in Daytona this year, guys, but I wasn't able to make it. We'll be at Talladega, though. I am glad to confirm that. Yeah, this year's Daytona race was not exactly our best showing, which I hate saying that. I hate saying that out of the gate. This was a big deal for the series, being on the main Fox channel. I feel bad for the series just because there was a lot of hype going into this event. Cletus McFarland going in, Catherine Legg, Elio Castroneves, just a lot of unique drivers participating in this event. So, there was a lot riding on this event, and I do hate that it did not go the way that maybe some people expected it to go like this. But I do wish the race could have went a little bit better than it did. But anyway, we'll get into all of that. Practice, what was going to be qualifying, ended up not happening. Practice and qualifying got all screwed up. The race itself, what we're going to see after the race, what we're going to maybe see this year, and we have one ARCA East Series announcement that we will be talking about at the end of the show as well. So you guys know the channel. If you're familiar or if you're a newbie, welcome to the ARC Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, aka Starting Park Car. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell for notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when I go live. We do this ARCA Racing Podcast pretty much every week. I'm not necessarily sure if we are going to do it every single race this year. I can't confirm that just yet, but we are going to be doing the majority of the season, and especially the big races like this. Subscribe to the Racing Experts, the official media partner of this podcast, and also go check out my Twitter as well. Go follow it there. Starting Park Car. Let's get that account up to 6,500 followers if we can do that. So the entry list. Obviously, after my podcast last Tuesday, we did have some changes to the entry list. The 22 of Nick White withdrew. They did not have I believe they did not have the car ready in time. And maybe it was just more of a decision. They also probably realized they weren't going to make the race too. So they went ahead and withdrew from the race. We also had the 48, Brad Smith. Now, there was some talk whether Brad was even going to make it to Daytona. For people who don't know, he's trying to get his cars rebuilt. So he's been struggling with that. Was he going to get in a fast track car, make a couple of practice laps, and then withdraw just to keep his Golden A plan alive? There was just so much up in the air stuff. The final result ended up being Jeff Schofield, thanks to that team, or Schofield, I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation of that last name, but shout out to that team for using Brad's number, keeping his full season owner's points money plan alive, which did mean the 07 was technically withdrawn, and that took us down to 45 cars. So instead of the 47 cars we were talking about last week, we were down to 45 cars, which, hey, DNQs at Daytona, I am not going to complain about that. Because it was, only 5 years ago where we only had 33 cars for this race. And it was a pretty sad sight to see. It really was. It was the lowest car count the series had ever had. So we are 5 years removed from that race, and we have 12 more entries. And I honestly think if you would have asked most ARCA people 5 years ago, they probably did not expect that to happen. So to get that many cars to show up, even though it's 5 less than last year, it's still a win. It's still good for the series. And it was going to make qualifying once again for the second year in a row very interesting to see because of the ARCA qualifying process. It's not single car speeds. It is group, and it is makes my words here. Random. That's the word I'm looking for. It is a random group choice of about, let's see here, with 45 cars, probably would have had like maybe 6-7 cars in each group. So you didn't have a whole lot to work with there. And obviously the whole calamity of group qualifying, it led to SVG missing the race last year and Pinnacle Racing Group having to pay out the ass just to get their car in the show. So, and we'll talk about this eventually. It did come again this year to bite one of the big operations, only in a little bit of a different way. But the entry list, like I said, we went over it last week. A lot of oddball entries, as we usually get for these races, and a lot of usual entries. I'm not going to go through them all, obviously. We already went through them all last week. I'm sure if you guys watched the race, you guys know who I'm talking about, some of the oddball entries and oddball teams that decided to enter this race. One person I did want to talk about that really did stick out was Garrett Mitchell, better known by his gimmick name and YouTube name, Cletus McFarland. He's awesome. If you're not subscribed to Cletus McFarland's channel, I strongly suggest you should. It is very fun. He's redneck on steroids. He's so funny. He's a genuine funny guy. That's the one thing I like. He's a genuine funny guy, funny redneck dude. Go check him out. And I love the fact that he was giving NASCAR a try. I was so excited when I saw his name on the test entry list, so to have him here, that was great. I just wish I could have been down there in Daytona to meet him, and I'm really excited he's going to Talladega. But yeah, so he was obviously racing in the number 30 for Rhett Jones Racing. They actually had 2 cars in the race, did Rhett Jones, the 29 for Kyle Steckley, and of course Cletus was in the 30. Unfortunately, though, nobody did get practice time on Thursday, as it's Florida and it's NASCAR season, so you know what that means. Rain. Literally, right as they were firing engines. I think we were less than a minute from a car rolling out to pit road. No, it didn't just rain. I mean, a monsoon. The floodgates literally opened up to just massive amounts of rain. Massive amounts of rain on track. And obviously, with the amount of track time it would take to dry the track, practice was immediately canceled, and then shortly thereafter, qualifying was canceled. And that shocked me, because, I mean, I'm like, we have 5 teams who paid the money to get here, which, for you guys don't know, I mean, you got to rent your shocks, you got to rent your springs, you got to pay to get all the way down to Daytona, get the car unloaded. I mean, it is a hell of a process just to get down there. And I feel bad for the 5 teams who they didn't even get 1 lap. They didn't even get any practice time. They didn't even get to say, like, well, at least we made some practice laps and then, just didn't have the speed to make it. Like, no, they got nothing. But, sometimes it works out like that, and you just can't help it. And it was due to the owner point structure. Buying points benefited some teams to making the race, and selling points didn't actually hurt one team in particular. And a part of those 5 DNQs was quite shocking. The number 15 Venturini Motorsports entry of Chase I want to say it's Pinsonialt. Again, if I botched that name, I do apologize. But he missed the race because the 15 car had no points. The 15 car, looking up in my notes here, the 15 entry sold their points. Was not sold their points, but the 15's points were moved over to the 25's points, meaning the 15 car had no points to fall back on. Had no points to fall back on, and therefore they missed it. They didn't have any points. And of course, the other cars that had made a couple of starts but still weren't in the top 40, again, they were just out of luck too. It was not a random draw. It was just simply they were not in the top 40. Steve Lewis Jr., Chuck Buchanan Jr., Ryan Huff, obviously, like we mentioned before, Chase Pinsonialt, and the 5th car to go home. Oh, God, I can't remember. I forgot it off the top of my head. Let me look at the entry list. I don't know why I can't remember the 5th car to go home. I got my notes right here. Can anyone tell me who was that 5th car to go home again? If I remember it. Hang on, I'm looking at my notes real quick. I just want to make sure I get this right on the people who missed. The 52. Thank you. Thank you, Caleb, in the chat. Yeah, the 52 of Robert Martin. Those were the 5 cars who missed the race. We actually got Cody Dennison, driver of the 11 Timcast car. He's in the chat, so good to see you, Cody. I wish we'll talk about you in a second. I wish Daytona could have went a little bit better for you. But yeah, we got Cody in the chat. But yeah, those were the 5 cars who failed to qualify. It may have been a blessing in disguise for some of them because they left Daytona with cars still intact. Can't say the same for pretty much about 90% of the field. So, but yeah, it does suck for them to not get one lap on track at all. That sucks. Like I said, because it's not cheap. You got to rent your shocks, you got to rent your springs. So I mean, they had to take all that back off, then load up, then go home. That's just, I feel for them, man. I feel for those 5 guys. I would assume all 5 of them will probably be at Talladega. I can't see why they wouldn't go. I'm sure ARCA will probably work with them, like, hey, you probably will help you out at Talladega, I'm sure, if they need it. But yeah, tough break, but I'm sure all 5 of those guys will be at Talladega to help the field size get up there because we're going to need it. But anyway, so what they did is they just set the field by the top 40 in points, which meant William Sawalich, driver of the 18, was going to be on the pole, and that Friday's, what was going to be qualifying session, would simply just be used as a practice session. So all the people would still get some practice time, which is, again, very beneficial because a lot of these people were rookies. So we get to Saturday, and the weather is good compared to last year, where we ran the ARCA race at 12:30 in the morning. Nope, this race started right on time, as it should be. William Sawalich led the field to the green flag with Lawless Allen. Again, should mention Lawless Allen going back from trucks to ARCA, driving full-time for Venturini this year in the 20. They led the field to the green flag. And the one thing, though, that the weird points situation did was jumble up, the field a little bit. You had some cars starting high in the field because they had purchased points or finished well in the owner's points last season that would not normally start that high. Like, for instance, a couple of the Andy Hillenberg entries, I think, like I said, the 9, the 11, I don't know if the 10, a couple of the Andy Hillenberg entries, they were starting inside the top 15 by virtue of their owner's point position last year. Same thing with Michael Maples. He bought Greg Van Alst's points, so he got a top 20 position. So if you look at, where all the cars were starting, you had a lot of unique entries. Like, even you have Jeff Schofield. He was starting inside the top 20 because he was using Brad's position. You had a lot of unique cars starting higher up in the field, probably not where they expected to qualify, or probably not where they expected to end up had qualifying actually happened. So, like I said, it was a really unique situation. Now, of course, wanted to mention the 0 of Brayton Laster before we get going in this podcast. He was kind of a nice Cinderella story to talk about because that car was the lone SB2 entry in the field. Now, to explain to our new viewers real quick, SB2, R5 Dodge, and the D3 Ford motors, those are classified as the legacy motors in the ARCA series. Now, those motors do have a horsepower disadvantage. Like, we're talking a horsepower disadvantage to the point where you're not going to be competitive at all. You are not going to be competitive at all. You're going to be considerably off the pace by a good probably 20 miles per hour, 15 to 20 miles per hour. And Brayton Laster, he was the only one to show up. Brad obviously did not show up with his car, so the 48 car actually had an Ilmore with the Schofield team. So, Brayton was the only car in the field running an SB2 legacy type setup. So they were not going to make the race in qualifying. The only way he was going to make the race was doing the rain dance, and it paid off for him. So I wanted to give him a shout out before we got going too. So it was one of the good underdog stories making the field. So we get the race going green. A couple laps in, and well, unfortunately, we got Cody Dennison in the chat, and as we've seen before, arrow loose off of turn 4, strikes, and not just a couple laps in, and poor Cody, poor the rest of the field too, just calamity off of turn 4, and takes out a bunch of cars. A lot of heavy hitters were taken out in this wreck. When you really think about it, they had caught the 67 of Ryan. Ryan Roulette wasn't really sure what happened to him. A couple of other cars had lost the draft. But like I said, Cody just loses it off of turn 4, swipes into another car, and just calamity ensues. Catherine Legg is taken out. Nolan Wilson's out. Eric Caudell, who sold his spot last year, he only got 2 laps. Sean Corr's in it. Caleb Costner, who I think has gotten a combined I think Caleb Costner's gotten 8 laps in the last 2 years combined because of this. Let's see. Looking at the race results, Willie Mullins was in it. Like I said, Cody Dennison, Dale Quarterly, Amber Balkin, Andy Jankowiak, Corey Day, Elio Castroneves, his first of 1,200 crashes that day. Michael Maples, Thad Moffitt, Ed Pompa. I think I got them all. But yeah, needless to say, a huge accident off of turn 4. And, just like last year too, we were only 2 or 3 laps into last year's race when we got a huge crash. So it's just, and it's not even the first time this has happened in an ARCA race at Daytona. I mean, you look at the Demolition Derby of 2009. We had a huge crash on lap 5. So it's this is nothing new for an ARCA race. Nothing new for an ARCA race at all, but I just felt bad. I just felt bad for a lot of those teams. It's just an honest mistake. I mean, I would just chalk it up to an honest mistake by Cody. An honest mistake by, we've seen many times. You look at the truck race, people were losing it off of turn 4. You look in the Xfinity race, I think some people have lost it off of turn 4 in the past. It just happens. But yeah, so I know Cody was feeling very down about himself. Cody, if you're still watching, how bad was the car torn up? If you could give us Cody, if you're still watching, could you tell us how bad the car was torn up? Is it going to be ready for Talladega, or are you going to need a different car? If he's still in the chat, I'd like to know. But yeah, needless to say, that took out quite a few cars. Luckily, some cars did come back out on track, make a couple laps. Like the 99 ran some caution laps. The 69 came back out for a few more laps. But yeah, that one crash alone dropped us down to about 32, 33 cars. Car is fine. It'll be good for Talladega. So, all right, so that's good. At least we know. I was just worried that maybe that car was killed. So we get the race going back green again. The Venturini, as we know with this race, the Venturini cars are going to be hard to beat. Now, they only had 3 bullets in this year compared to 5 last year and usually around 4. So, if we could just break those Venturini cars up, they probably were going to be able to be beatable this year. But as we learn, Lawless Allen really, really had a fast car. I would say out of the 3 Venturini cars, he had the best car. His car could really pull away from the field and really suck up to people as well. So he was definitely going to be one of the cars to beat. We had our next caution only a few laps later. Amber Balkin coming off of turn 4 again. Pretty much one of the same things that happened with Cody, arrow loosing into the wall to the right. Amber Balkin got loose off of 4 and slid right into Cletus McFarland. Yes, Cletus McFarland. So he went spinning, and then unfortunately his teammate Kyle Steckley wasn't so lucky. He ended up slamming into the wall, destroying both sides of his car. So one of the Rhett Jones cars was taken out right there. Unfortunately for Amber Balcaen, the day would not get much better. And unfortunately for Cletus McFarland, the day would not last much longer as well. So, which sucked because I was having a great time watching Cletus's in-car camera. You could physically hear him screaming over the radio. He was having such a good time, which was funny as hell. But yeah, so that unfortunately wiped out the 29. We go back going green again. And unfortunately, again, another crash just literally 2 laps later. Amber Balcaen going into turn 1 loses a right front tire. And poor Cletus, nowhere to go. I mean, absolutely nowhere to go. You watch his onboard camera, he still thinks he could have missed it. I don't think Cletus would have been able to miss that crash. The closing rate that he had on Amber Balcaen, if he had maybe tried to go low, I think he would have wrecked himself on the banking. But yeah, so poor Cletus McFarland gets in the crash. He's out with Amber Balcaen. And then, man, I don't know what happened, but the 0-2 and the 86 just had 2 just awful hits. Awful hits. Craig Bracken took 3 of the worst hits I've seen in an ARCA car in a long time. I would not be shocked if that car is dead. That car's got to be killed. The front clip is obviously destroyed. Becca Monopoly, I saw some post-race photos from the City Garage team. That car is, if it ain't killed, it's pretty much killed. That car will need a little bit more than a front clip as well. I mean, man, that was just ugly. And that can happen sometimes in these ARCA crashes. Not only are they bad crashes, but they can get ugly. And, Craig Bracken was submitted to a hospital. I believe he has been since released. So that's good news. Obviously great news that he is out of the hospital. But I'm not shocked. And frankly, if Craig could have gotten out of that car and walked away, that would have been a miracle. But those kinds of hits in that car, it's not shocked that he had to go to a hospital. But like I said, thank God he's out. He's safe and he's okay. Like I said, for Becca, glad she's safe and okay. But those cars were torn up, man. That really sucked. Yeah, man, for poor Cletus. I mean, the guy only got probably 6-7 laps of actual green flag racing at Daytona. He didn't really get a chance to get out of the box. But that's Daytona racing, man. So welcome to NASCAR, Cletus. It ain't much different in the other series. As, you guys saw in today's Jail Junior download, Dale admits it ain't much different in the other series. But, yeah, so, I'm like, man, we're wrecking car after car after car. Because, I mean, at this point, we're already down to probably 27 cars. And we started with 40. So, man, we're losing so much of the field right now. If we could just get some laps and get going. And so then we get going, and this time around, 2 laps later, Amber Balcaen, again, we've mentioned Amber a lot, and I feel bad for her. This was not a good race for her at all. I feel bad for her. She deactivated her social medias. I just feel so bad for Amber. She's always been nice to me in the garage. I've got nothing against her. I've got nothing against Amber Balcaen. She's, like I said, she's always been kind to me in the garage. Every time I've said hi, took a couple pictures with her years ago, back when she was actually getting started in racing. So she's always been a nice lady to me. But man, this was not her best race. Not 2 laps later, we have yet another crash. That also took out Takuma Koga, who, poor Takuma, man, he went to a backup car after a practice crash, and then crashed the backup car. And neither of the incidents were his fault either. So poor Takuma Koga, man. He DNQ last year and 2 crashes this year. We get restarted, and Brayton Laster, the Cinderella story, comes to an end. I mean, we don't even get probably 2,000 feet past the finish line. Brayton Laster had an issue going into turn 1. Not really sure what happened. I've heard reports of a tire failure, a part failure, maybe some issue shifting. I know I've heard multiple potential issues of what happened, what went wrong, but it's kind of a shame because due to all the yellows, the car that could not keep up at all, was running 53 second, I mean, they'd be lucky to run 53 second, like 56 second lap times, 56 second lap times, was still in the lead lap, and unfortunately hit the wall, and hit the front, and hit the rear. So, you know, the car that they had just finished repairing from their hard crash last year doesn't even make it one race. And it's like, ugh, I hate that for Wayne, because that's his primary super speedway car. He likes to use that car in particular. And I think it'll be ready for Talladega. Brayton said it should be ready for Talladega. But man, that sucks, because, you know, had they just ridden around, even if they had gone a couple laps down throughout the race, I mean, Brayton would have easily probably ended up, he probably would have ended up 14th or 15th, which would have been a great day for Peterson. So, but by technicality, it still wasn't a terrible finish. I mean, 24th out of 40. So, you know, by technicality, but that just shows right here. I mean, look what I just said. We were only 24 laps into this race. 24 laps in of 80. And we were already down to 23 cars left in the race. Now, we had a couple of cars come back out from the garage and make some extra laps. Michael Maples, like I said, he made a couple more laps. Nolan Wilson made a couple more laps, but they would eventually retire. So we are restarting the race on lap, let's see, it was lap 30. We restarted the race on lap 30. On lap 30 with only 23 cars left in the race. So that was how quickly we were dwindling down this field size. Now, I do want to also take note something I missed. Tim Vines and Alex Clubb. Now, those cars did not, to my knowledge, did not start the race. Alex Clubb had issues with his brakes, causing him to lose 5 laps, eventually coming back out on track. And Tim Vines and the Rice team had an alternator issue with Ilmore, and they all got that fixed, new alternator in. They got back out on the track 29 laps down. So those two cars had issues basically right from the start, but were able to recover. And even despite the amount of laps down they were, they were able to actually still get pretty decent finishes. So we go back to green on lap 30, and it's like, man, can we get some laps going here, you know? Can we just get some laps going here? Because if we can, you know, we can maybe get some good racing in, because at this point, it's just been absolute mayhem and chaos. So we get back going green. And I'm a little concerned because we had Bryce Hogberg, Brian Dowsett, Ryan Roulette, Scott Melton, Hunter Deschantel was your top 5 when we go back to green. And I'm like, yes, I love the back markers starting up front. And I'm like, oh no, the back markers are up front. Because you don't know what's going to happen. Thankfully, nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened. Everything actually went a lot better than I thought it would. A lot better than I thought it would. Like I said, you know, Brother-in-Law Motorsports, they know how to set up decent cars for plate tracks. So does Fast Track Racing. The 06 car was a fast track car this past week. And obviously, Ryan Roulette, that 67 operation, they know how to set up a car as well. So it's not like these things were crap boxes. They weren't. They were well set up cars. It's just, you know, like I said, the inexperience. That's what I'm more pointing at. But, yeah, nonetheless, we were 3 wide off of turn 2, 3 wide down the backstretch. It was probably the best, in my opinion, one of the best moments of the whole race. Seeing the field go 3 wide into turn 3. You had Scott Melton in the middle, William Sawalich up top, and Brian Dowsett on the bottom. And I'm like, yes, that's what I love about this. And it didn't last too long. You know, the field were shuffling their way through. And Scott Melton actually led a lap at Daytona. So that was pretty cool to see for Scotty. And, but I felt bad for him at the same time, because I'm like, man, he's up there with a lot of these young kids. They can be a little aggressive with their equipment. And the one thing I noticed, you know, the 20 car of Lawless Allen, and I had called this. I was watching the race with my father, and I had called this. Laps earlier. I'm like, the 20 car is pushing that 68 way too hard, man. Way too hard. And I'm like, he's going to wreck him. He's going to wreck the 68. And sure enough, what happens a couple laps later? They go into turn 1. The 20 is not getting off the 68's bumper, and what happens? He just turns him. He just turns him right in front of the field. The 82 is in it again. Felt like the 1800th crash that poor Elio had been in. So, and I felt bad for Scott Melton. One of the few times. I mean, Scott, he can do some dumb stuff sometimes. We know he has. Most of the time it's not his fault, but sometimes it is. It just kind of goes 50-50 with him. He's a great guy, though. But, man, this time was not his fault at all. He was doing nothing wrong. He was doing a great job. And it was just, in my opinion, it was too much aggression out of Lawless Allen. I feel bad for him because he was doing a great job, and the 20 just would not get off of him. And I get it. You're trying to push him. But at the same time, you also got to drag the brake because you can't just keep shoving the guy the entire lap. It doesn't work with these cars. These ARCA cars shake around way too much. And you go into turn one and you hit him the wrong way, and then boom, it turned him sideways. So, yeah, rough day for the Kimmels. Did reply to Will Kimmel on a post that he made about it. They are repairing the cars. They do not know if they will be at Talladega right now. So, at least the good news is we know the cars are repairable, but we do not know if they will be at Talladega right now. Yes, auto wreck it. I'll give you the one right there. You get a point right there, Brian McDonald. Auto wreck it instead of auto park it. I love that. That's pretty clever right there. So then, I believe, was that used as the halfway break? No, that was the next. Well, that was the next crash. So at this point, I'm like, can we just make this the halfway break and then maybe get a recharge? But nope, they moved the halfway break to lap 45 instead. So we get back going green again. 6-lap run. This was the longest green flag stretch to the point. And I actually thought the 6 laps of green flag racing we got up until the halfway break was actually pretty decent. These cars ran pretty well side by side. There wasn't really any problems. And again, though, I noticed the exact same thing of what he did to the 68. The 20 is pushing. He was behind. The 20 was on the top line, and he was right behind Jeff Schofield. And I believe it was, so looking at my notes right here, I'm watching the footage. It was the 55, the 48, and the 20. And I'm like, man, the 20 is pushing that 48 too hard, man. I called it the same exact thing I called it. I'm like, he's pushing him too hard. And what happens going down the backstretch? We're literally half a lap. We're literally half a lap from the halfway break. Caution. And the 20 just shoves the 48 right into the 55. Nothing the 48 can do about it. And the 55 gets turned right into the wall. Causes another crash. The 45 is in it. The 20 ends up getting caught in it. The 77 of Corey Day is involved in his other crash of the day. And it's just like, why? Why didn't the 20 just let off? Like, come on, spotter. Tell him to get off. Drag the brake. Do something. Like, come on, dude. That's the second time. And you just costed yourself and your other teammate a chance at the win now. So I didn't get it. Like, what are we doing here? And unshockingly, ARCA saw that too because they called the driver of the 20 and the spotter to the hauler post-race, probably to tell him, get off the cars. Like, dude, you can't be pushing them like that. I don't know. I don't know, man. That was just... I called it both times, and I don't know what he was doing in that moment, but oh well. We finally had the halfway caution. Get back going green. LeVar Scott and William Sawalich. And we finally got some green flag action. We actually finally got some green flag action. 14 laps, and, we can finally actually start being positive for once. I'm not going to lie. The 14 laps of green flag action we were able to get wasn't bad. It really wasn't. These cars were able to run side by side. These cars were able to make some moves and, go around each other. it was actually pretty good. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I figured for the lack of cars that we had in the field that we were just going to get, they're going to run single file, then they're going to eventually break off into like 4 or 5 car packs. But no, they stayed into a pack of cars. They were running side by side. People were actually getting runs. I mean, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how somewhat good this racing was. And I'm like, man, if we could have had this with, the 40 car field, we would have probably had a really solid race. We even had 3 wide action at one point. And even though Helio Castroneves, who was pretty much missing his entire front valence at this point, he was still out there slicing and dicing all these great moves. And it was just like, man, this is good. It's good racing. And then they eventually kind of broke off into a pack. 2 different packs, because one group of people had gotten single file and another group of people were side by side. But then the people who were in the side by side got single file, ran down the pack of cars. Again, it was getting good. It was actually somewhat interesting. And then we had another crash, actually 2 separate incidents coming off of turn 4. The 27 of Tim Richmond, he just loses it off of turn 4. Again, very similar to what we've seen many times. And the third and the final Venturini bullet was taken out as the 25 of Jake Finch was out. So no Venturini win this year. No Venturini win this year. So that was, and I'm like, okay, we have a real chance to get a unique and maybe a different winner for this race. Obviously, we still had a lot of heavy hitters in the field. You had the PRG cars. You had the 18, the Rev car. So you still had a lot of heavy hitters and a lot of high-profile teams still left in this race. They get it cleaned up. We go the final green flag run of 13 laps, which was actually the second longest green flag run of the day. William Sawalich, LeVar Scott lead, but again, the 82 is right up there with his teammate, the 28 of Brendan Butterbean Queen. And I like it, the 6 is going for the lead. He pulls out. They actually overtake. They overtake William Sawalich as the lead, but then with help from his teammate, the 82 stays up there. The 6 got the classic case. The 6 got way too far out front. You saw that coming from a mile away. You get out way too far. And they overtook him, and Brendan Queen got the lead. And one of the other things I love about this, Andy Jankowiak, who was completely destroyed, mind you, was still up there in the top 5. I love that part. I love that part so much. That Andy Jankowiak, that car was destroyed on both sides, and he was up there running for the win. I love that. And so Brendan Queen gets into the lead. Helio Castroneves, he gets into second. I'm like, okay, the 82 is going to play blockade for the 28 now. It's going to be really hard to get past both of them. But we're still getting consistent side-by-side racing. Like I said, it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. And you got some underdogs up there too. Like I said, you got Ryan Roulette in the lead draft. AJ Moyer's up there in the lead draft. Bryce Hogberg is in the lead draft. So you got a lot of underdog guys who are also up there too. You had William Sawalich and Jason Kitzmiller, who eventually were able to break the top 2 apart. And I'm like, oh, is this where the 18 is going to get him? But the run stalled out. Despite William having a hell of a run coming, he stalled out. He couldn't get much done. And I'm like, they're still getting pretty far out there, but can they build enough of a run quick enough? And the 97 was coming, but then he stalled out. And I'm like, that's it. The 28's going to win. And they come off a turn 4 and not really much of a challenge. But Brendan Butterbean Queen comes across the line and gets the win at Daytona. And it was a pretty good finish, not going to lie. Pretty good finish. Unfortunately, we weren't done because even after the race, we've seen what happened. He said he didn't have a radio. He didn't have working radios. But AJ Moyer decides to not slow down and completely junks the 82 of Helio Castroneves in what was like his 1500th crash. And the reports that not only was this car heavily damaged, but some reports in the garage that this car may have been totaled because of the heavy damage. So, yeah, I don't really know what AJ Moyer was doing that moment. he said he didn't have any radios. He didn't know that the race was over. Not really. I don't know why. If you don't have working radios, you probably shouldn't be on the track. Just saying. So I don't know what happens there, but that's just unneeded. But I'm glad AJ got a top 10. It's a great run for him, but it's just if I feel bad because I was pretty much completely overshadowed by that move. So, but it is what it is. Just I'm not sure what's going to happen to AJ. I mean, I saw a lot of people saying they should get his license pulled. I mean, it's not really. There was a lot of fans who were very critical about it. I don't feel like it's really my place to talk about it, but just wanted to bring it up, saying AJ Moyer didn't do himself many favors with that after the checkered flag incident. Yeah. So Brendan Butterbean Queen wins at Daytona. William Sawalich was second. Jason Kitzmer with a great start to the season for him in third. LeVar Scott fourth. Elio Castroneves fifth. Cole Raz sixth. AJ Moyer seventh. Andy Jankowiak eighth. Ryan Roulette top 10 in ninth. And Bryce Hogberg also a top 10 in 10th. Hunter DeChantel in 11th. Jason White 12th. Ed Pompa 13th. Jeff Schofield, despite being involved in the crash, recovered to 14th. Jake Finch did finish the race, coming back out 5 laps down in 15th. Alex Clubb, despite all the brake problems, came back to finish 16th. Tim Richmond ended up 17th. Lawless Allen actually did come back out on track after that crash to finish the final few laps in a modified. Finished 18th, because again, he's going after the points championship. Tim Vines, despite being 29 laps down, still ended up with a top 20 in 19th. And 20th was Brian Dowsett, who retired after a severe vibration. The following people failed to finish the race as well. Isabella Robusto in 21st, Corey Day in 22nd, Scott Melton in 23rd. 24th was Brayton Laster. 25th was Takuma Koga. 26th, Becca Monopoly. 27th, Craig Bracken. 28th, Nolan Wilson. 29th, Amber Balkin. 30th was Cletus McFarland. 31st was Michael Maples. 32nd was Kyle Steckley. 33rd was Dale Quarterly. 34th was Cody Dennison. 35th was Willie Mullins. 36th was Sean Core. 37th was Thad Moffitt. 38th was Caleb Costner. 39th was Catherine Legg. And 40th was Eric Caudell. So yeah, so there's your race rundown right there, from 1st to 40th. There's your 1st to 40th race rundown of the 40 cars that started. 18 finished. Yeah, definitely not the best showing for ARCA, but hey, we did pretty well in the ratings. We did really, really well in the ratings. Let me see if I can find the ratings real quick. We did really well in the ratings, actually. Let me see. I thought I had them pulled up. Just look up good old Adam Stern's account here real quick. Yeah, we got 1.16 million viewers. I think that did better than the truck race. It's the most watched ARCA racing event at Daytona since 2013, which got 1.5 million. So that in itself is a plus. I just wish those 1.16 million could have witnessed just a little bit better of a race. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to be honest here, and I'm going to give this race... God, I really hate... I try to be as positive as I can. The longtime viewers of the show, but you got to be honest with yourself. I think the race, a 3 or 4 out of 10. And that's, you could say sometimes that's be generous, but I think that's a fair score. This was not our best showing. It really wasn't. I mean, you go back and watch this race 2 years ago with Greg Van Alst in 2023. That was a good ARCA race at Daytona. That I highly praised that race. That was really good. 2024, not very good. 2025, sorry, not very good. You got to be honest with yourself sometimes. I hate doing that, but I don't want to just say, oh, everything's so good. No, you got to be honest with yourself. This was not the best showing for the ARCA Menard Series at Daytona, but you know what? We're going to have that, and hopefully we can bounce back and have a better race at Talladega as well. Now, in terms of the points championship, right now, with Butterbean Queen winning the race at Daytona, he currently holds the Drivers' Championship lead. Now, we're going to go off full-time drivers only. So, Brendan Butterbean Queen has a 6-point lead over Jason Kitzmiller. A 6-point lead. They're actually tied for second right now is Jason Kitzmiller and LeVar Scott. They are 6 points behind. Still no confirmation on if Cole Raz is full-time, but I'll count him right now. For now, he is 9 points behind. Then the next full-timer is Alex Clubb. He is in fifth. He is minus 19. Like I said, for Lawless Allen, man, it's a big loss. 20 points out of the lead right now is Lawless Allen, so that's going to take a couple races for him to claw back from. Same with Isabella Robusto. She is right now 24 points out of the championship. So, like I said, for the Venturini full-time drivers, not ideal ways to start the year. Both drivers being 20 points out of the championship, leaving Daytona. Brayton Laster, he is minus 27. Brad Smith wasn't there, and I think that was it for the full-timers because, yeah, looking at the results, because I don't think Thad Moffitt and Amber are full-time. Are they? I know the 46 is. I know the 70 isn't full-time with Amber. Is the 46 full-time? I'm not sure 100% on that one, but... Well, Michael Maples, that's right. And Michael Maples, he is 34 points behind. I forgot he's full-time as well. So... but yeah, that's your points rundown. So far, Brendan Butterbean Queen has a great shot at this championship. And it's first one of the year. So how about that? But for Venturini, it's definitely going to be a clawback. Now, will they get back to that front? Probably will. I wouldn't count out those drivers. We've got 19 races left, obviously, so anything can happen. Anything can happen. We have Phoenix coming up. That is going to have a big field as well. And Talladega is still expected to have a big field too. So, for the Venturini team, they're going to definitely claw back some points. Definitely going to be able to claw back some points probably at those events as well. So yeah, that kind of wraps up Daytona. Like I said, not the best event, but, you're going to have that sometimes. And hopefully the ARCA Menard Series can rebound at Talladega. Now, it's not the next race. Phoenix is the next race, but I'm talking about the next plate track. The next plate track is Talladega, obviously, and hopefully we can rebound a little bit better. Cletus McFarland, by the way, did confirm on the Dale Jr. download that he will be at Talladega. So that's great to see in the same exact car. I will be at Talladega as well. Unfortunately, I feel really bad saying this, I will not be at Rockingham. I feel really bad about that, but fortunately some circumstances have gotten in the way there where I will not be at that event. But on the bright side, I will be at Talladega. So we're trading in Rockingham and we're still going to Talladega. So I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I'm excited. It'll be the first time I'll be at Talladega since 2021. So yeah, can't wait to experience that boulevard again. That'll be a party. So if you're at Talladega, come say hi. That's for sure. As well, I also did recently completed my ARCA licensing and drug testing. So I want to announce that we will be doing some stuff in the ARCA Menard series with myself later this year. We're aiming for Iowa. So if anyone, again, if you're a fan of me, probably be on the racetrack this year at some point, hoping to be at Iowa, maybe Elko. It'll just kind of depend on, like that old word, money. So we'll see about that one. And my final piece of talking information is we have, and in my opinion, one of the best kept secrets. I did not even know about this one. Timmy Hill Motorsports, will end with this. They are going ARCA racing. Yes, the Truck Series Team Hill Motorsports, which is scaled back to a part-time operation this year. They are running full-time in the ARCA Menard Series East in his 56 Toyota entry. So it's like, man, how cool would that be, number one, to race with one of my mentors, Timmy Hill. So, but number two, it is some much needed blood and life into the East Series. This series desperately needed another full-time car and full-time driver too, because as we've come to find out, Max Reeves is not doing the entire season, mind you. He's actually only doing 3 of the 8 East events, which is quite shocking. It's one of the first times in a while. I think it's the first time since ever, I think, that JGR is not running a full-time East driver. Now, of course, the 18 car is still going to be there full-time, mind you, but they will not have a full-time driver. And right now, the only full-time drivers that we have confirmed for East are Tyler Reif, Timmy Hill now, Takuma Koga, that was recently announced, and Rita Goulet. And I would imagine Brad Smith will do it. Brad's talked about doing the East races for the bonus money. And maybe we could also see Dale Shear as well. And there's a good chance we might see one more fast track entry. We might not know yet, but you never know. But how about that? Timmy Hill actually has, not only that, he has a chance at the championship too. That'd be pretty cool. Imagine a Timmy Hill East championship win. That'd be cool. So I think him and Tyler Reif, and even probably Takuma, will put on a pretty decent battle for the East Championship this year as well. So I wanted to talk about that before we ended the show. But, yeah, some new blood into the East Series, which it desperately needs. Daytona ARCA, not perfect by any means, but, well, there's not really a but. Just not really perfect. But anyway, guys, hopefully we'll be back in form for the next ARC Racing podcast. As we close out tonight, I want to announce to you right now, next week, Tuesday, you guys got to be here. I got a big guest for next week's show. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Be here. We will have, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest female racing car drivers of all time, Shauna Robinson, will be on the show next week. I am so excited for this one. So everyone, be here next Tuesday. You're not gonna want to miss this one, guys. Shauna Robinson. We're gonna be telling stories from her ARCA career, her NASCAR career, and all that good stuff. So I wanted to close that out with that fun announcement. Be here next Tuesday. It'll be just an interview. We will not be talking about any racing. It'll simply be a driver's interview podcast. So anyway, guys, I think that's all I got for y'all tonight. So thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully we'll also be back to my computer next week, and I don't have to keep doing this on my cell phone. But till then, as long as I can get these podcasts done for y'all, that's what we're going to do. So I give you all the goodbye salute. Have a great rest of your night, y'all, as I try to end this show. Goodbye, y'all.